Hello guys and welcome back. This is the next video regarding the paintwork for the Manxman. Yeah, welcome back guys. So what we have here, we've got all the parts here on the ground. We're going back to the American metal cleaning, or the strippers, and see if we can just get the rest of these parts chemically dipped, just to get rid of all those remaining traces of paint. We're also taking poor Jeff's red Vincent tank. Yeah, unfortunately it's a known fault with the Vincent tanks. They fit at the front with two lugs, and then here this rear bracket is a common failure, and so poor Jeff, he pressure tested the tank and then painted it and sealed it on the inside, and then took it for a ride only to find that a hairline crack developed here at the rear mounting bracket, and so there was gas coming out of this, just a little bit, but it's damaged the paintwork unfortunately. It's going to have the tank stripped and this weld ground off and then re-welded. 47, 48, 49, 50, 50, 50, that's good to remember. Hey Greg, thank you very much for doing all the parts for the Manxman. You bet. And just thought we'd ask you a few questions about your business, if you don't mind, and Absolutely. How the process that you'll be going through to bake and dip the parts as well for the Manxman. Yeah.
Sure. Just a little history on the company. It was started back in the 80s and it's been in this location ever since. And Mike Walton started it back then, and his daughter came to work for him soon after. And I bought the business from Katrina and her siblings about a year and a half ago. We haven't made any revolutionary changes to the processes that Mike developed. We fine-tuned a few things, just what works best for me and my crew. But we use heat often on industrial parts, and we usually do that on gas tanks. So we've got an oven that runs at 750 to 850 degrees, depending on what we're baking off. That turns any old gas, it turns any sludge from the gas, the coatings, sometimes the Bondo, it just turns it to ash.
Yeah.
Also on motorcycle tanks, they often have a liner in them. Okay. And so burning that will get that liner out of there so that we know that we can get down to clean metal. And then we have other tanks that we go through that we dip it into to remove rust, and we have a tank that's got electricity in it that kind of helps do a final removal of the rust and do a final cleaning, and then there's lots of pressure washing in between. So the parts that you brought me today will probably not go in the oven. Some of them are pretty thin metal and not well supported. We don't want them to warp or anything.
Yeah.
So they'll all go into a caustic bath. Maybe we'll get them in today, and then they'll sit over the weekend. And then next week we'll evaluate how well they've stripped, and then we'll pressure wash them. At that point, we kind of analyze them a little more, and we go into some rust removal steps. And then after that process is done, then we go into the tank again with the electricity. So it's 3 process steps and 3 pressure washing steps. Wow. And it's fairly labor intensive.
Yeah.
I couldn't do the job without the oven and the tanks, but the craftsmanship is really in the technicians and their pressure washing. They're 4,000 PSI pressure washing guns, and they run at almost 200 degrees. And anything with an overlapping seam, they just have to lay that 0 degree on that seam and just go down it like a snail to make sure they press out all the contaminants and any chemicals. And it takes a real eye, and people that have pressure washed sidewalks are not generally well suited to pressure wash car parts. We also do a lot of industrial parts. We do pump housings for the paper pulp industry. We do thousands of feet of pipe for hydraulic and oxygen service. We do a lot of aluminum parts. Sometimes powder coaters have things that somebody wants refinished and it's got powder on it. It's hard to sandblast that off without damaging the aluminum, so we've got capability of stripping that.
And size-wise as well. I mean, here's one example of what you can dip. It's just incredible.
So the tank that we strip car bodies in is 7,000 gallons.
Wow.
So the car goes clear under, and it's also heated, so my gas bill is fairly high.
And how long would this take to dip? It stays in for hours and days?
This one was in for a week. The longer we can leave it in, if we've got other things to work on and this isn't pressed, then the faster it washes, because there's always nooks and crannies. For whatever reason, the paint sticks better than it did. If we can let it sit in there for a week and we don't have something that needs to go in right behind it, then we'll do that, and then it washes. But we've got easily 20 hours of pressure washing in this car between all the different steps we went on, and then you can see the colors in it. It's got an iron phosphate wash that helps when they epoxy primer it. It helps give teeth for the epoxy to stick to.
I see.
And it also kind of helps prevent flash rust.
Okay, they're sort of essentially ready for priming.
Yeah, they are.
Painting.
They'll do it differently every time. This is a fairly clean car with very little rust, so they may go right to a primer and mask off the areas that need some repair.
Oh yeah.
Or there's weld-through primers, so they may just primer the whole thing with the weld-through primer, and then they can just fix those areas.
Oh, I see.
But these guys get on it pretty fast. I foresee that they will put it in their shop, and they will, do their metal work and just keep it clean and wear gloves, and then probably within a week after they start on it, they'll be ready to paint.
I see.
So and they're phenomenal when they get done.
So this is just a great canvas for the bike parts, for this Manxman project. So, well, thank you so much, Greg. It's been great. It's been a really great experience.
Cool.
I've really enjoyed following it and watching it. So,
thank you for your interest. And we can look at doing some pressure washing there if you minute.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
So it's a Model A block. It's a shop that specializes in working on Model A's. We often do this in two steps for him. We'll do the hot tanking to get some of those oils that we use back there. They really turn to varnish and stuff.
Yeah.
We get it all cleaned out, and then he comes in before we finish them, and he does checks them for cracks. When we do engine blocks, what's different from most machine shops do is they just hot tank them, and they can get oily stuff out, but we actually get rust that's inside the water jackets.
Oh yeah. Oh, that pushes everything out, doesn't it? Man, yeah.
It also helps it not rust, because as it gets pretty hot, then once we get done, it dries pretty fast.
Is there a soap solution in there as well, or no?
The last job we did, we had some iron phosphate. Still in there, and it's a combination of soap and mild acid. And so it's kind of nice, because the last tank it was in was toxic. So
See what you mean by lots of manual involvement, knowing where to start and how to tackle it. Because you can easily miss something, can't you? It's really important. Yeah.
So this is the control for our burn-off oven, and right now the set temperature is at 800 degrees, which is a little bit hotter than we normally run it. But I've got a motorcycle frame in there that the guy reinforced, and he basically wants me to try to normalize it a little bit. He put a lot of bracing on it. The actual temperature in the oven is 830 degrees, and that's because there's some parts in there with a lot of paint on them, and that is creating its own fuel. And then up here is the afterburner, which burns up the smoke and the hydrocarbons, and the temperature that it's running tells me that most of that paint is starting to disappear. It'll get up into 15, even 1600 when there's a lot of stuff burning. I'll probably turn this temperature down a little bit before I leave today, but I just wanted to give it a few hours at over 800 so that it would normalize. We run it for 8 hours. It's been up to temperature for about 2 now.
Oh my gosh.
See, the powder's pretty much burned up on the railing.
Oh, that warms you up nicely.
It's a Land Rover bumper.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. kind of think like a mold maker that has to be able to get something out of the mold.
Yes.
So
make sure that there's enough space and cavities for it.
Yeah, it's mostly just that you don't put something like it turns into a diving bell or traps air. All right, so that'll get dipped in the tank. We have the long chain so that it can go all the way to the bottom, and yet we can keep the chain out so we can retrieve it.